of the unknown soldiers. We have a saying down here that soldiers never die until they are forgotten. Tomb guards never forget. Me saying that is, in a way, us telling this story is keeping those unknown soldiers alive. All right? So, an unknown soldier, for those who don't know, is a soldier whose remains were disfigured in a way that they could not be recognized, or there was, say, some kind of administrative error upon transportation of those set of remains that that soldier could have once been a known soldier, but they lost what had previously recognized them, so they were now an unknown soldier. You'll see a lot more of those in our earlier years as a nation, because our military is more of a militia-style military. People would sign up and fight one battle and then leave. Pretty much they would just sign their name on a paper. Now, we will actually never have another unknown soldier, fortunately, because of how we keep track of our service members, as well as advances in, say, medical science. All right, so in 1915, the world entered World War I. In 1917, the U.S. entered World War I. Of World War I, there was hundreds of thousands of casualties on the American side. Of those hundreds of thousands of casualties, we had a couple thousand unknown soldiers. Actually, in 1921, Congress approved to have a interment of the World War I unknown, taking the idea from other countries such as Great Britain and France, who already had a Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, theirs being called the Tomb of the Unknown Warrior. They chose to disinter four unknown candidates from the American cemeteries in France, and have a selection in a small town by the name of Chalon-sur-Marne in France. The four unknown candidates, one was selected randomly, then after being selected was then brought to Washington, D.C. and stayed in the Capitol for a period of about 24 hours. After that, the World War I unknown was taken here to the Memorial Amphitheater. Actually, people sat exactly where y'all are. The unknown soldier was right up there, and the president spoke. And then on Armistice Day, now known as Veterans Day, 1921, the World War I unknown was interred here. Now, because there was no one to be their next of kin, no one to receive their flag, I was trying to say it in a simpler term, but no one to be the next of kin, no one to receive their flag. The president at that time, President Warren G. Harding, stepped up as their next of kin, with the idea that he had the ability to send them to war, he should see them come home. All right? So actually, with the interment of the World War I unknown, the tomb actually didn't look how it looks today. It was actually just a short tabletop, like that tall, wasn't intricate, didn't look as nice. Also, it wasn't guarded. It wasn't until about 5 years later a civilian guard posted himself because he didn't like how disrespectful people were being to the tomb. And then in 1926, the military posted themselves, and then in 1937, we started what we call our 24-hour vigil. We have been guarding the tomb 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, regardless of the weather, regardless of the temperature, regardless of the day. Like, it's Thanksgiving, actually everybody in the platoon will work on Christmas, so holidays don't really make a difference. So we have been guarding for over 80 years, we've been guarding 24 hours a day for over 80 years. All right, so, and then in 1931, we started construction of the tomb for what we see today, and then it was finally completed and unveiled to the public in 1932. And then it stayed with that one unknown, just still being guarded until 1941. We entered World War II. World War II was a lengthier process. Instead of the four unknown candidates that we had from World War I, we had 19 unknown candidates from World War II, simply because we fought in two separate theaters. We had to have a selection from each theater, and then a selection of those two. However, after World War II, Congress gave a 5-year time span to be able to identify as many casualties as possible. And then after that 5-year time span, we entered the Korean War. After the Korean War, Congress gave another 5-year time span, again, to identify as many casualties as possible. And then after that 5-year time span, we actually had a double interment ceremony of the World War II and Korean War unknowns. Actually, so if you were to look at the tomb, if we were to be on the other side, the tomb itself would be the World War I unknown. The one on the left would be the Korean War, and the one on the right would be the World War II. Then the center would be the Vietnam War, unknown. So the Vietnam conflict unknown was a little different. Actually, all of them are different, but the Vietnam conflict unknown, years went by after the Vietnam War, and there were little to no memorials for the Vietnam veterans or for those who had lost loved ones in the Vietnam War. So the Reagan administration actually pushed to have an interment of the Vietnam unknown. So Memorial Day of 1984, we had an interment of the Vietnam unknown. However, years went by, and in 1998, there was a colonel in the U.S. Air Force by the name of Patricia Blassie. She had gathered enough evidence and beliefs that she knew who the Vietnam unknown was. So she then petitioned Congress, and Congress approved to have a disinterment of the Vietnam unknown. So they disinterred the Vietnam unknown in 1998, then took that set of remains to Walter Reed Hospital and did testing on them. Then, after testing, they found out that it was in fact who she thought it was, her brother, First Lieutenant Michael J. Blassie of the U.S. Air Force. Because First Lieutenant Blassie's remains were now of a known man, he could not be buried back onto the plaza with the other unknowns, so his remains were then handed over to the family, and he was finally laid to rest in his hometown of St. Louis, Missouri. Actually, something that I think is pretty powerful is actually on the back of his headstone. So it has a list of awards that he received, and then at the very bottom it says Unknown Soldier, May 1984, May 1998, because those were the times that he served as the Vietnam unknown. So about a year after his remains were identified, they then put an inscription on the center crypt. The center crypt still lays empty today. There was actually only one candidate. He was the only candidate from the Vietnam unknown. So there are no more unknown soldiers from the Vietnam War. So that crypt still lays empty today, and they put an inscription on the crypt that says honoring and keeping faith with America's missing servicemen and the dates in which in which the Vietnam War occurred. And now that crypt is dedicated to all service members who have fallen in the wars in which we've been engaged, whose remains were never recovered or they've gone missing in action. So that actually concludes my historical brief on the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier as well as the unknowns. Do y'all have any questions about the information that I covered? I can go into more detail. I actually just gave y'all a brief summary, of course, or what we do here as tomb guards. So, yes, ma'am.
Were you the person that just exchanged?
No, we have several people that walk. So.
Have you walked yet?
Today?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I have over 600 walks.
Oh.
So.
Okay.
Have you ever had to yell at anybody that was out in the crowd being obnoxious?
That happens almost every walk. So. Really? We have to what we call break off. We have to break off the crowd almost every walk.
That's horrible. Mm-hmm. How long have you?
What would you have done if today when they were doing the changing? What would they have done if the squirrel had crawled onto the?
Are you talking about 2 days ago when the squirrel was right there?
No.
One of my buddies.
He was right there today.
We would have done our job and just guarded the tomb. I've gotten stung in the face by a bee before and I didn't move. So.
How long have you been doing this?
About a year, sir.
A year.
So when you sign up for that or you're assigned to that, how long, is it a term or is it?
So we actually do it for the rest of our contract because if you make it to become a sentinel here, so there's tomb guards, the guys in training, and there's sentinels. A sentinel like myself, I am a permanent person in this platoon. We don't want to leave this platoon. So I absolutely love my job for all 26 hours of each shift. I absolutely love my job. So
how many times do you walk in your 26 hours?
it can depend, man.
Okay.
Yeah, I can do none to a maximum of 23. So. All right, well, all of you have a blessed day. Thank you for listening, and all of you have a safe trip back to wherever y'all are from.